Well, hello again. Our third installment of communication theories. Well, today we're actually going to start talking about some theories. There's 30 something in the book, and it's pretty obvious that there's no way I can actually cover each one in depth. I could probably do a full semester on each theory we're going over. The objective of this course is to give you an overview of theories. So I'm going to go through chapter 5, 6, and 7 in this installment, and we're going to talk about some theories, and I'm going to give you my insight on them. Hopefully, with my perspective and the textbook, you'll have a basic understanding of the theory. And then, should you decide to use these theories in future research, of course, you need to look at them more in depth. That's kind of what our final paper is about. You're going to write about a theory. You're going to do some research on it, figure out more about it, and how to use it properly. So the first one we're going to talk about is symbolic interactionism. And symbolic interaction is basically, in a nutshell, it means that we interact because of symbols, and that we have socially constructed. Social construction is the belief that our world is created through communication. For example, you call this a book or a textbook because that's what somebody taught you to call it. In another language, it may be called something else. It may sound similar. In German, it's Buch, not book, but it's similar. It is a book. And we learn how to interact with the world and one another through these symbols. And symbolic interaction is anticipating how others will react to the symbols. You have your own little things with your friends. My wife and I bought an atlas that's a book that has maps in it that everybody uses their phone for now many years ago, and we lost it before we could ever use it, and we never found it. And so now, if we can't find something, we say it's with the atlas. That's a symbolic interaction between my wife and I. If you were looking for something and I said it's with the atlas, you probably wouldn't have a clue what I was talking about. So it's something that we've created. And I know that how my wife is going to react when I say it's with the atlas. Um, Simultaneous interpretation is how we respond to the the symbol. What did we get out of it? What did it mean to us? Uh, well, simultaneous interpretation and response. So the meaning is a shared creation. Now, I hope I don't offend any of you, but when I was younger and still today, there is a specific hand symbol that means something very derogatory. And if, well, I did it the other day in a video, if somebody does that to me, it's kind of like, do what? Well, one day my wife's son and I were going to Subway, and some kid inside Subway saw my son get out of the truck and went like that. I went ballistic. My son said, "No, no, Dad, he's just a friend of mine. He's saying hi." And I said, "Well, he needs to think about learning how to say hi differently in public. You two may use that privately with one another, but in society, that's not an acceptable way to say hello." So the meaning is a shared creation. Uh, my meaning for that symbol is very derogatory. His from his friend was, "Hey, how you doing?" But from somebody else, he may have had the same derogatory meaning I did. So different usage, different people use symbols differently. And think about the road signs. Well, there's a stop sign is a universal road sign in most countries. I'm not going to say all because I haven't been to all of them. But then there's other signs that are different. So Um, Different people use symbols differently, and we need to think about the different standpoints. Uh, had I thought about, had I known my son knew that kid and da 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 da, I may have perceived it differently. But at that particular point, I did not. So, uh, what are the possible others? You know, when you see somebody holding an umbrella for somebody else, what are the possible meanings behind that? It's they care about it. They're getting paid to do it. You know, which one is it? So, what are the possible others that are out there? Minding is an internal dialogue that we have with ourselves when we're trying to figure this out. And we have to understand the different perspectives of different people to be able to understand communication. The book talks about something called looking glass self. And looking glass self basically means is how do others perceive you? I know how you want to be perceived. I know how I want to be perceived. But that does not mean that I am perceived that way. So, how do others see us? The I is how do I see myself? Do I see myself as a competent lecturer that knows how to get information to students? Uh, I hope so. Do the me is how others see me. You may, on the other hand, may see me as a uh, buffoon, an old guy that doesn't know what he's doing, that's wasting your time making these videos. I hope that I'm right, and I hope you don't see me that way. But the generalized others is how I think I compare to society's expectations. When I was teaching in class, I would wear a suit to teach. And many of my peers, even as an undergrad, I mean, a graduate student, and many of my peers would be there in flip flops and shorts and a shirt and a ball hat. But, you know, I was over 50 years old. They were 26, 27 years old. They were more your generation. They dressed more like you do. And I dressed how I thought I should dress as a college professor. So the generalized others, how do you think you compare to society? You know, I was at the dragon boat race on the Chattahoochee, and a bunch of blind people in a boat trying to paddle it, and keep up with other people. There was a guy took his shirt off, and it was like, damn, if I had a body like that, I'd take mine off too. But I wasn't about to take my shirt off because I definitely had a dad body, or I still got one. You know, so I did not go that way because I know society's expectations were young, fit, da 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 da, and I wasn't in that category. Uh, we create a reality. We act all the time. When you first meet somebody that you want to have a possible future with, shall we say, they're not meeting the real you. You are acting. You know, Shakespeare talked about the whole world's a stage. You're acting. You put on a show. You act like you think they want you to act. So hopefully they will be intrigued by you and interested in you. When you've been together with somebody for a while, they get to know the real you. And if they're still putting up with you, they might want you to meet their family. So when you go to meet their family, once again, you're creating an act. You're putting on an act. You know, you are not being the real you in front of your future significance, future, you know, or parents, possibly your future in-laws, because you want them to like you. I mean, we all do. Participant observation basically is ethnography. We talked about that in the last chapter, where you move into something and you observe it as if you were a native and you try to understand the native nuances and the native languages and the native symbols. The book makes a very good point. You know, when I was a kid, my mom always said, "Sticks and stones may hurt you, may break your bones, but words will never hurt you." Words do hurt. Words hurt, especially if they come from somebody that we care about or we respect or we consider, you know, important. You know, if my parents have told me I was worthless, then I probably would have never grown up to be who I am. Hopefully I did a good job and hopefully I impressed them or made them proud. I believe I did. But words hurt. You know, that's a fallacy. Yes, sticks and stones can break your bones, but words can definitely destroy a person mentally, their confidence, their personality. Many of the, according to the textbook, many of the um, school shooters were loners because people said basically they were idiots, they were stupid, and it turned into a self fulfilling prophecy because that's what people said I was. Or if you've never taken public speaking yet, you're going to stand up there and say, "Man, I can't do this." Yeah, you can. If you tell yourself you can't, you won't. I mean, think about it. Does a school pep rally start with "We might win" or "They're going to beat us"? No, you know you don't want to be that negative talk, and you don't want to give that negative talk to other people. Um, Responsive eye is created by how we respond to others. You know, how do we act? How do we respond to other people? Or they say good morning and we say, then they're going to say, well, he's a crabby old SOB and I don't want to talk to him. The ethical echo the book talks about is how we are responsible for each other. Um, I'm my brother's keeper. He's not heavy. He's my brother. You know, all those different little lines and things you can say. I look at it this way. My mom told me when I was raised, and I know I'm old, and she was even older, and but we're here to help out one another. Opening the door and holding for the person behind you. I mean, that's common courtesy. A lot of people don't do it anymore. And there was a period in our times I can hold my own door. Okay, fine, hold your door. I don't care. You know, as a visually impaired person, I often run into people trying to do things for me I can do for myself, and I try to be polite about it. But sometimes it's like, you know, I'm not an invalid. Let me do what I can do. Other times I run in 5Ks and things like that, and somebody run up to me and say, "You're an inspiration." And I want to say, "Why?" Because I can run. You know, just because I'm blind doesn't mean I can't do things. But I know that if I insult them or jump on them, especially a kid, um, it's not the proper thing to do. My ethical echo, my ethical code is I'm responsible for that person in some aspect, whether I know them or not. So I don't jump on them and say, don't say that. I can run. You know, just because I can't see don't mean I can't do anything. So it's a broad thing that we need to always be aware of. Told you it's going to be quick. Chapter 6, the coordinated management of meaning. It pretty much goes hand in hand with symbolic interactionism. Communication is not a one-way street. The first thing the book talks about is the theory of communication is bowling. You take the ball, you throw it down the lane, it smacks the pins, it does something. The ball is the message, the lane is the medium, and what it does down there is what it does. That's not communication is not like that. Now, in some aspects, communication, you know, like a billboard sign, they're getting the message to you. But in reality, you're reacting to that message, whether you liked it or you didn't. And so then it's going to change how you read it. So communication isn't one way, it's dynamic. It goes back and forth. I say something, you say something, I say something. But unfortunately, it doesn't happen me, you, me, you, me, you. It happens all at once. As I'm talking, if we're in person to person situation, I'm watching what you do and adjusting how I stand, stay, speak, or whatever by how you react. Communication is fundamentally constructs our world. How would you identify anything if you weren't able to communicate? How would you call this a phone? How would you talk to somebody on the phone? How would you write a text message? So fundamentally, communication creates the world, constructs the world in which we live in. And communication perspective is focusing on how communication makes our world. How did what we say, do, or feel change things? Speaking of these little things right here, I was sitting on my front porch one day, scrolling through, checking my email, having a good time, and my wife walked out and started talking to me. And so what did I do? I kept strolling through my phone, checking my email. Yeah, okay. And then she went inside and I realized, damn, that was rude. That wasn't right. Because I hate it when people do that to me. And I realized I was doing it to somebody else. So my perspective changed at that point in time. So now when she comes out and talks to me, I put my phone down, I look at her, and I talk to her. It may not be anything that I really give a damn about. It may not be anything that I'm concerned about. But it's important enough for her to come talk to me, so it's important enough for me to give her my attention. So our communication perspectives, how do we communicate? How communication makes our world. Think about that. The people you've tried to talk to and they've been distracted by their phone, how did it make you feel? Escher's Bond of Union, a painting they talk about in the book that they don't have the right to print, but you can Google it, which I did. Uh, Basically, it describes it pretty well. You have a couple of different ribbons that are floating around. They're making it, and they make faces, and they're connected. And in reality, if you tug on one, you tug on the other. So it's an interesting perspective to Google it and look at it. Social constructionists. People co-construct their realities. And their world is shaped by what they create. If you and somebody else are working towards something and you're working together and you're trying to make it better, the world that you're creating is going to be focused toward that. But if you and somebody else are working on something and they're not interested, much like me on the phone when my wife was trying to talk to me, it changes the world created. Our stories really aren't reality. We remember certain things. Have you ever watched a police show where the witnesses all had the exact same story because they rehearsed it? Well, that's because, and the police didn't know they're lying because nobody ever has the exact same story. During the Korean War, there was a small unit forward and they got overrun. 5 of them, I believe, and they fought their way back. They got back, and at that time, the Army had just started using psychologists to figure stuff out. So they had this young lieutenant just out of college come to Korea, and he was going to interview these 5 soldiers and find out what really happened. And all 5 of them told him a different story, and he said, "Y'all lying, because none of you have the same story." And the thing about a firefight is you see what you see. It's right in front of you. I don't see what he's doing. I don't see what he's doing. I see what's going to me. And that's the story the guy told. So our stories aren't reality. And then what our mind does, my wife, as I mentioned, I think before, has dementia. And she can see a white car or blue car run a stop sign. and then tell me about it later, and it will be a red car because her mind has gaps. Her memory has gaps. And she didn't remember what color it was, but she knew what color it was, and she saw the red stop sign, so she said red. It happens, and a lot of times, uh, the thing about oral traditions, they get changed slightly over the years. Our stories change slightly over the years because we add things in, we take things out, and that goes to the coherence is making meaning by telling stories. We try to make meaning of things by telling stories about them, but we always have to understand that our stories aren't necessarily reality. And the book has an acronym, and generally I like acronyms. I spent 20 years in the Army, and we had a whole bunch of them, but this one does not make any sense to me. LUUUUTT. I can't say it, I can't speak it. It does, but it's the acronym they use. Live stories, what we actually did. Our live story is what actually happened. Now, I can sit down with y'all and have a cup of coffee or beer and tell you about some of my military experiences. And I might say the same thing every time. Um, but the next part of it is unknown stories. There's missing information. This particular thing I didn't think was important at this telling of the story. You what we were wearing wasn't important in this particular telling. So or me not remembering. Let me get that right. Unknown stories is things that I have forgotten or missing information. Untold stories is things we left out. I left this out. I left that out because it didn't. I had to tell in a quick period of time, or there was a mixed company where if it was all just a bunch of old soldiers, I'd have said it differently. The unheard stories, things that were not acknowledged. A lot of times things happen and we don't acknowledge why it happened. And we're not sure why it happened. The untellable story is the forbidden or painful details. Like I was saying a while ago, if it were mixed company and my students, I might tell it one way. But if it was a bunch of old soldiers, I might tell it another way. I might say things that are forbidden in mixed company in today's society. I might boost myself up a little bit because I was shy and I didn't want you to know that. Storytelling, how we communicate. I use this explanation when I teach public speaking. You've all heard very good speakers, and you've all heard very poor speakers. I want you to try to emulate the good ones when I teach public speaking. But how people tell stories is how we communicate. And sometimes they're good and they're intriguing and you want to listen, and other times you shut it down. In stories told, what we say we're doing. I'm doing this. This is what I did. It's not necessarily the truth, but it's my perception of the truth. It's my perception of what happened. The serpentine model of deteriorating conversation. The back and forth. He said, she said. He said, she said. It starts out in the book, starts with an example. Both people are cordial to one another, and then one person pisses the other one off, and then they try to make up, and they try to one up, they try to one up, they try to one up, they try to one up. So it goes downhill quick because neither one of them is stopping to see how what they're saying, how it's affecting the other. Logical force is how I had to respond to. We had a conversation. You put me down. I had to put you down. I couldn't compliment you after that. But on the other hand, if you compliment somebody, generally you get a compliment back. So, coordination, collaborating for the better. That's what the book talks about. But you know, sometimes people coordinate for the not so good. So coordination, basically working together. Hopefully, in the communication field, we're going to work to make things better. But sometimes, and honestly, it may be better for them, but bad for everybody else. That may be the perspective that they're saying better. Um, Criminal enterprise works together to make things better for them, but not necessarily better for everybody else. What we have to understand in communication is we had a saying in the Army, GIGO or CISO, garbage in is garbage out, or CISO was something else in and something else out. We are going to get what we make. If we put good stuff into it, hopefully we're going to get something good out. You got a lot better chance of getting something good out if you put good into it. If you put garbage in it, you're going to get garbage out. Another thing that I heard for many years is you get more bees with honey than with vinegar. So choose your words, choose your approach, choose your thoughts and your questions appropriately so you can get something good out of it. Getting the pattern right it's important. If you get the pattern right, then things will hopefully flow. But what you have to understand is my pattern may not be yours. Your pattern may be, and I hate using religion as an example, but your pattern may be Christianity and mine may be Buddhism or Taoism or whatever. Judaism. The pattern you choose, the values you choose, you might think these are the best values in the world. This is how the world needs to operate. I might have slightly different values. And if I have slightly different values, trying to make me conform to your values is not good communication. Trying to make things your way. And I'm not saying making it my way is any better. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that when we communicate, we have to the better good of all, or we have to try to. And we can't be fixed and set in our system, our particular values, because my values may not be yours. The book talks about referring to a conversation or interpersonal communication between as I, it, and I, thou. And basically, I, it means I'm me, and the other, it is an other, it's a thing. It's a non-entity. I, thou is I am having a conversation with another person. We do this all the time. If you're driving down a road and the sign above the road says turn right, then it's simply an I, it. It's me in an object. Detour. It's an object. But what if there's a person there standing holding a sign that says detour? You're not going to stop and have a conversation with them. You're not going to create something with them. You're not going to coordinate something with them. It's more of an I, it thing. I don't want you to take that wrong because I don't ever want to be thought of as an it. But in the communication sequence, you're not really interacting. So I hope you understand that perspective. You need to have an I thou perspective, like when I put the phone down and listened to what my wife actually had to say. She was a person, or she is a person. She deserved the respect of a person. Sometimes you're going to have I, it things going on. And more often than not, the book, I think, is a thing to be used to manipulate it. I see a lot of politicians like that. You know, they want to use and manipulate everybody else, and I don't care for that. Chapter 7, folks, we're almost there. I apologize this is so short, but if I did an in-depth on each one of these, you folks would be watching videos until you reach my age. And I don't want that to happen. So hopefully this clarifies kind of what the book is telling you. Expectancy violation theory. What did you expect and was it violated? And how did it affect the communication? Basically, is what that boils down to. We all have our personal space, my preferred space from other people. And that other is different for different people. Proxemics, the study says that 0 to 18 inches is an intimate distance. 18 inches to 4 feet is a personal distance. 4 feet to 12 feet is a social distance. And 12 to 25 feet is a public distance. I don't know why they don't go beyond 25 feet, but they don't. So what I want you to understand is these are culturally dependent distances. And the book does make note of that. But for example, right now, if you go to your local McDonald's and you get your tray and you walk out there and there's no empty tables, there's plenty of empty chairs, but no empty tables, you'll stand there and look around until the table opens up. In Europe, if I'm the only one at the 4-seat table, somebody will walk up there, sit down at their tray, and start eating at the table with me. That's different to them, It's they see the distance. They're a much more crowded society. It makes sense for them just to take a seat and start eating. They'll ask, is das frei? Is the chair free? But if it is, they'll sit down and they'll have their meal right with you. And so it's something that our culture has created in us. Society, our culture says that you don't sit down with strangers to eat. In the United States and other countries, they do. I love using an elevator as an example in some classes that I teach on nonverbal communication. This is mostly about nonverbal communication. The theory is anyway. If you are the last person on a crowded elevator, walk on the elevator, and everybody walks in the elevator, turns, faces the door, right? If you're the last person on the elevator, walk in the elevator, let the doors close behind you, and stare at everybody. You are invading their personal space. Yeah, we have to be this close together because we're in an elevator, but you don't have to stand there and stare at me. And another example of an elevator is if there is one person on an elevator and you walk in, get on that elevator and stand right next to them, they'll move to the other side of the elevator because you're invading their space. This is my space. Don't walk in there and stand next to me. A word of warning, okay? If you're a guy my size, don't walk in the elevator and stand right next to a petite young lady, or a young lady. I shouldn't say petite, a young lady, because you don't know what her life has been, and she may really feel threatened by you. So don't do it. On the other hand, young ladies, if you see a guy on the elevator and walk up and stand right next to him, he will follow you all over campus because he thinks she likes me. It's called threat threshold. Someone goes into our intimate space. They become too close. They're not an intimate. They're not that close to us, but they are in that space. They have violated our threat threshold. So expectancy is what do you think is going to happen? This is what I expect. When I'm on the elevator by myself, I expect somebody to get to the other side, not stand next to me. When they do, they have violated my space. A violation of valence, either positive or negative. The breach could be positive. I could be standing on the elevator and a nice looking person may walk up and stand next to me and it might make me feel good. Or it could be somebody come and stand next to me and make me feel uncomfortable. So it could be a positive or negative value placed on the breach. Is it somebody that I might want to know better, or does it just make me feel good that I guess I don't have body odor and stink because they didn't scurry to the other side. Communication, reward, valence. What is the sum of everything? Yes, they violated my personal space. There's only two of us on the elevator. They got right next to me. But it turned out we started having a great conversation and we're both attracted to one another. So the communication, reward, valence in that case may be positive. Or they stood right next to me on the elevator and they had very bad body odor and bad breath and I wasn't comfortable and I was stuck in a corner and I couldn't move. So the communication reward valence in that case would be negative. So punish or reward, am I going to, I mean, I really can't punish a stranger, but no, I'm not going to be your friend. I'm not going to associate with you. You give me bad, da da da. Or, hey, let's have dinner. Interaction adaptation theory. When they first started the EVT, they, thought this is it. And then they realized that no, stuff changes. It is not set in stone. It is not exactly the way we thought it was going to be every time. So the interaction adaptation theory says it changes. And why does it change? Because we do not have a static situation. We have two different people, both with a different perception. Maybe it's a positive violation and it changed. Maybe it's a negative violation and it changed another way. I may have been on the elevator by myself and the door's open and some beautiful person standing there looks gorgeous, walks up and stands next to me, and they haven't had a bath in 2 weeks. No. I may have thought it was going to be good, then I thought, no, it's not going to be good. So, our interaction adaptation theory says basically things change. And they think things change because people are different. It's not like in a math where one always means one and two always means two and 1 + 2 always means 3. Interaction position. It's the requirements. And this is what I need to happen. Not what I want to happen, but this is what I need to happen. This is what I expect to happen, expectancies, and this is my desires. The book uses an acronym RED for that. Interaction position. Okay, when I'm starting this conversation, what's going on, this is what I need, this is what I expect, and this is what I desire. Finally, I believe reciprocity. Reciprocity. Simply responding with similar behavior. When we get to know somebody and we like them, we start acting more like them, they start acting more like us, and brings us closer together. I grew up all over the world. And when I go to a new place, I generally pick up the local dialect. It drives my wife crazy, especially when we were in Louisiana for a couple of years. Because I learned how to speak and pronounce, and the ethnography coming in. You watch what's going on, you learn the locals. And one of the reasons is I didn't like being thought of as an outsider. I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be considered a local everywhere I went, because when you're a young kid traveling around in the Army, you get picked on when you go to Boston and you have a Southern accent, or when you go to Texas and you sound like you're from New England. And I didn't like that. So I started creating this false narrative, like I said a couple of chapters ago, it's acting. Well, reciprocity is when we respond. You have two people though responding with similar behavior. I'm acting this way, you're acting this way, and it brings us closer together. I understand this is not a comprehensive, full-blown lecture about any one of the 3 chapters we've covered in this book. Unfortunately, I got to say again, there's no way I could cover them with the time needed. I apologize. There are some pretty good little snippets on the internet about some of these theories, that will give you another explanation. You know, everybody, I had to adjust my garage door opener, so I YouTubed how to adjust a garage door opener. My garage door model, I found it, and everything else. So there's some great snippets on YouTube and all that if you need a little bit more understanding of these. And I'm always available via email. I do need to apologize to those of you that have emailed me and did not get a reply because there was a problem with my email that we've since fixed. Let me know if you have questions. Let me know if you have complaints. This is the first time I've taught this particular class. Well, I've taught it a long time ago, 2012. But I haven't taught it recently, so if I'm missing something or if I'm stepping on something, let me know. Give me feedback. Yeah, I, like I said earlier, we rely on we need to take care of other people. So if I'm doing something that's messing you up, let me know about it. I don't take any offense at that at all. I'm not perfect. So good luck with these chapters. Good luck in this course. I'm going to hopefully make it as understandable, enjoyable, and as fun as theory can be. I understand it's not the most fun topic in the world. And I will see you next week. Well, I guess you'll see me. I don't ever get to see you. Take care of yourselves. Have a great week. Let me know if I can help in any way. Bye.